سيداتي سادتي، طابت أوقاتكم. نحييكم من قناة الميادين ونقدم لكم هذا اللقاء الخاص من نيويورك مع السيد ستيفانو فاكارا، مؤلف كتاب حول اغتيال الرئيس جون كينيدي بعد 50 عاما على هذا الاغتيال. فما الأسرار التي يمكن أن يكشفها ستيفانو فاكارا في هذا المجال؟ يقول الكتاب إن هناك أسرار كثيرة حول الاغتيال، أهمها إخفاء أو طمس عملية الاغتيال وعلاقة المافيا بها، لا سيما تلك الشخصية الغامضة كارلوس مارتشيلو. كارلوس مارتشيلو كان زعيم المافيا في نيو أورلينز، وكان له سطوة كبيرة على الكثير من السياسيين ورجال الأمن في الإدارة الأمريكية وحولها. سوف نستمع من السيد فاكارا حول هذا الموضوع بالتفصيل. أهلا وسهلا بكم سيد فاكارا. السيد فاكارا، لماذا قررت بعد 50 عاما أن تكتب هذا الكتاب؟
Well, a lot has been written about President Kennedy assassination, but unfortunately, only few books really say something that he's close to the truth. Instead, even this year, after 50 years, we realize that they still, in this country, in the United States, the most programs, the most television, the most newspaper article, they still go through a line that he's the Warren Commission. They think he's very far from the truth. And I think instead, this country has to be able to handle the truth, because the truth is justice. And only with justice, we have real truth, a real democracy for this country. Who killed the president? I am also a citizen, I'm Italian, but I'm also a citizen of this country, and I think that it's time for the truth.
من الذي غطى على اسم مارتشيلو وأبعده عن دائرة الاتهام؟
The cover-up was done on the beginning, after the assassination, and we can include the government and through FBI, CIA, but not necessarily means that who did the cover-up is responsible for killing the president. That's what I think is what I'm trying to say to this country. People think that if Oswald didn't do it, then and the cover-up was done by the government, then the government of the United States is responsible of the killing of the president. It's not the case. What happened is Oswald probably he is guilty too. He's a patsy, as he said. But what it means is that if the mafia is behind, like I believe, the way the mafia kills, the way the mafia organized this killing is in the way that they are able to be unpunished and to be able to blackmail. They are able to blackmail the government. And for the government, it's better not find the truth, not having justice, because in that case, the other truth that can come out can be worse than the truth about the assassination.
هناك حديث حاليا على أن الوثائق المتعلقة بالأزمة الكوبية أخفيت ولا تزال غير معلنة.
There is a linkage because the blackmailing of the mafia that was able so the government to stop the investigation who really killed the president is very linked to the Cuban crisis, before the Cuban Missiles crisis, and even before the Bay of Pigs, and after the attempt of the government to try to kill Fidel Castro and stage a coup in Cuba, because the mafia was involved. The government, even before the Kennedy administration, the Eisenhower administration, they practically have the mafia work with them. They invited the mafia to work with them in killing Castro. They knew that the mafia had people in Cuba that could do it, and they wanted the help of the mafia. This continued also during the Kennedy administration. This truth that now we have, anybody can find that in the internet, there are the documents published by the CIA. But this truth at the time, in 1963, in 1964, there will have been a very dangerous finding. Because after the missiles crisis, when there was the big crisis, almost we had the Third World War, yes. Then President Kennedy and Khrushchev from Russia, they were able to get a deal that was to absolutely not try anymore to kill Castro or stage a coup.
إذا
Incredible.
لماذا مع أن مارتشيلو تحدث في السجن وتفاخر بأنه قتل كينيدي، لماذا لم يكشف مارتشيلو؟ ولماذا لم يؤخذ تفاخره على أنه إدانة له، خاصة وأن الكونغرس في تحقيق وارن لم أشار إلى علاقة مارتشيلو، لكنه قال ليس هناك أدلة كافية. أليس الاعتراف في حد ذاته دليلا كافيا؟
Well, Carlos Marcello, first of all, we have to understand that Carlos Marcello killed the president of the United States because he had to stop the brother, Robert Kennedy, that at that time was the Attorney General, the Minister of Justice. The Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, was going after Marcello, and he started to go after him even before he became Attorney General. He was working for a commission in Congress in '59. Now, this is important to understand because for Carlos Marcello, the target, yes, he became the president and he killed the president because he had to stop the brother. But he didn't have anything against really John Kennedy. Now, a mafia, and now I try to explain again, when at the target he's so important, if you're a real mafioso boss like Carlos Marcello was, you prepare the assassination in the way that the justice will not come after you, because you prepare a field of blackmailing.
كيف يحدث ذلك؟ هل هناك من قواعد لاغتيال شخصية بهذه الأهمية؟
Yes. Any homicide, any assassination, you need three conditions. That his motive, means, and opportunity. For a mafia assassination at that level, you need two more. That he's blackmailing, in this case we talked before, Cuba, but also women, and for example, the circumstance where Marilyn Monroe, the famous actress, died. And the last one, his isolation. I mean, the target, who you want to kill, has to be isolated, has to be weak. It's like a weak prey. In that case, he's isolated by the establishment. The target is part of the establishment, but he's in a weak position.
لكن كينيدي في ذلك الوقت خرج كما يظهر للعالم على الأقل منتصرا. هو استطاع أن يأخذ من خروشتشوف انتصارا بأنه خروشتشوف سحب الصواريخ من كوبا، وفي المقابل لم يخرج للعلن أن كينيدي سحب صواريخ من تركيا.
You're right. He was a winner because actually the Americans were going to pull out those missiles anyway. Yes. Maybe the Russians didn't know, but they were going to. But what is important is that Kennedy, after the fall of '62, he was different. He thought that they couldn't happen again. In the next conflict like this, the world will end. So he wanted to change it. For example, in Vietnam, somebody say that he started the war with Vietnam. It's not true. Yes, it's true that he sent the first advisor, but now already in the fall of '63, he had executive orders that he wanted pulled back from Vietnam. This establishment, the establishment that was for war, the establishment that had the interest that certain policy, certain Cold War policy will not change, of course was not happy anymore with Kennedy. And I would have to say also the CIA was not happy with Kennedy. Also the FBI, Edgar Hoover, that was the director of FBI, he knew that Kennedy wanted to fire him. He will now confirm him. So there were a lot of interests that didn't want him anymore. And the mafia, this is what the mafia does, smelled that, and that's why it acted.
تحدثت في كتابك عن فساد في دالاس وفي قسم الشرطة تحديدا. كيف تجلى ذلك الفساد؟
Yes, Carlos Marcello is a real mafia boss compared to others because he's able to corrupt everything around him. Not only New Orleans, but in also the area of the other states, means Alabama and Mississippi, and also Texas, where he operates. The police in Dallas, for example, he has in his hands Oswald for 2 days. And we have nothing, no confession, no anything that's written for the interrogation of Oswald was left. And also the circumstance of the way he dies. You know, they change the way to transport him to the prison. They changed it several times. And Jack Ruby, that is a man of the mafia, is at the right place at the right time because he must know. Somebody must have informed him of the way Oswald was going to be transported. So it's obvious that Carlos Marcello has his man also in the Dallas police, but not only in the Dallas police. He has his men everywhere. He corrupts politicians, he corrupts businessmen. He's a real mafia. This is what is mafia. Mafia is not against establishment. Mafia, he's usually with establishment. He's able to keep connection with.
في إحدى الفقرات في الكتاب تحدثت على أن بعض المسؤولين الكبار في الأمن الأمريكي نظروا إلى مارتشيلو على أنه بائع طماطم.
Well, if we want to think in a benign way, we just think that they were incompetent. If we want to think instead in a different way, that's what I think, is that they didn't have an interest. They will not want to know the truth. As I said before, the head of the FBI, Hoover, he didn't want to pursue the mafia. Now, we have two interpretations. One is because he was just interested in the communists, going after the communists, so he didn't want to be bothered with anything else. Another interpretation is that he was blackmailed by the mafia. For his homosexuality, maybe. I think he was also because he was a gambler. He was gambling a lot, and gambling in this country at that time was all in the hands of the mafia. So he owned money at the mafia. The mafia, in a way, had Hoover also in his pocket. And that's why the FBI that was investigating Carlos Marcello were always sending reports saying, oh no, he's not a mafia boss, he's only a tomato salesman. This up to the 70s until Hoover died. After Hoover died, the FBI started to investigate him seriously, Carlos Marcello.
هناك حالة مشابهة حاليا حصلت. قبل الأزمة السورية والكيميائي كان الرئيس باراك أوباما يستعد لتوجيه ضربة إلى سوريا، وكان العالم يشعر وكأنه على حافة أو شفير حرب عالمية ثالثة. ثم حصل اتفاق روسي أمريكي جعل هذه الحرب تبتعد. الآن هل ترى أن الرئيس أوباما في وضع مشابه لوضع جون كينيدي بعد الأزمة الكوبية؟ وهل هناك يمكن أن نرى شخصية مختلفة لأوباما بعد هذه الأزمة كما حصل وقلت في كتابك عن كينيدي؟
Well, this is an important question in the sense that I hope no. I hope that the 50 years that passed made this country and the presidency stronger compared to those interests that, remember, President Eisenhower said, be careful to certain industrial interests that are against the people, against the democracy of this country. I agree with you that there are many people here, important people, that are not happy with the agreement. But I think that the democracy in this country is more mature in the sense that I think it will be much more difficult today to these people stop the president like they stopped Kennedy, to stop him today. Because also the media, the people, I don't think the cover-up will have worked the way it worked 50 years ago. So I hope the circumstances, they are different. But it's true, I agree with you that today Barack Obama, when he is in a situation where he is, after he was close to a crisis that we don't know what could have happened, even a war, like was the case of Cuba, now he changed and he had the strength to find an agreement with Iran, and this of course is good, it's good for peace. But there are always people against peace.
في الختام هناك تحدثت على أن لو كندي عاش لكان العالم مختلفا من خلال الخطاب الذي ألقاه في الأمم المتحدة بعد الأزمة الكوبية. تحدثت عن أنه كان شخصية مختلفة، بأي اتجاه كان مختلفا؟
As I said before, even before the speech at the United Nations, he did a speech at American University. It's a famous speech for the commencement in front of the students. And the president said that the way they acted for the 20 years before, during the Cold War, where it was too dangerous. The world has to be taken away from the brink of a war that will just destroy the world. So he was for making a peace and understanding that the peace you need, compromise. You need to find a way. He was seen by certain interests, was seen weak, like a weak position. This was like if he was giving up. But I think that in that speech and then later on at the United Nations, he was able also to foresee problems. At that time, we are in the early 60s, he was talking about environmental problems. He was saying like that we had to work together, all together to save the planet. And he wanted to work with the Soviet Union, and in that speech at the United Nations, he talked, for example, for the program in the space, he wanted to cooperate and not having a race with the Soviet Union, but like trying to cooperate, go together on the moon or something, and not having a flag of a country. He was talking about, I don't think this has to be competition. This is actually to be a possibility that will make partnership. It will be peace. It will. So I think really, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, in '63, a few weeks before he died, he was foreseeing a different world. Unfortunately, he didn't have the time. So that's why, if he survived, probably will have arrived at détente, something that happened after, years after, probably we will have reached that point before with them.
سيد ستيفانو فاكارا مؤلف هذا الكتاب، شكرا جزيلا لك على هذا اللقاء. السادة المشاهدين، كان هذا اللقاء مع ستيفانو فاكارا مؤلف كتاب حول اغتيال جون كينيدي والحقائق التي طمست في هذا الخصوص. كان معكم نزار عبود من قناة الميادين في نيويورك، وإلى اللقاء في مقابلات أخرى. شكرا لكم.